Once upon a time, in ages past, when recorded history was non-existent, humanity stood, thrust into the chaos of the world. There existed the wild seas, beasts of fury and death, and rival groups of men dedicated to the sole purpose of killing and taking everything early man held dear. In this raging world of storms, disease, and overbearing darkness, did our forebears stand upon this earth. The world was so grand and mysterious that everything unknown was something to be feared, something that would potentially kill and destroy, cause grief and pain, and almost insurmountable terror. In those days, man had no reason or rhyme to exist. There was no certainty of gods, nor purpose. There was nothing that reaffirmed that man was even fit to exist among such beasts of fury, the mighty elements and evil men. All men had was necessity. He knew he was hungry. He knew he was cold. He knew he was scared. There was nothing which reaffirmed his character, no justification as to whether life was even worth living. Many around him would die, caught by a predator and ripped to bloody shreds. Boys he grew up with and cared for, killed by disease or murdered by either beast or man. Infanticide, death, pestilence, all were part and parcel of days where even the smallest meal was a fight that could end in the loss of everything. An ancient man grew to manhood in this unrelenting chaos. But somewhere, one day, one man stood in the face of grief and wretched misfortune. Hungry, cold, with disheartened peers, he stood in the fury of a raging storm. Perhaps he had lost much. Perhaps he had never lived a day in which he could sit in peace and share a time of safety with his brothers. Perhaps he was the lowest of his brethren, a man who could not hunt as well, and therefore could not lay with a woman, for they were meant for his brothers of higher standing. And when they were cold and defeated and felt they could move no more, in that storm one man stood, and as the thunder clapped and the rain and sharp cold gusts of wind blew upon his face, he shouted his name into the chaos. He proclaimed his right to live. There was no tangible justification, nothing that prompted him the right to claim what he wanted. All he felt was rage, anger, and he stood in that storm and screamed his name into the void, putting all his heart and vigor and will into this primordial cry. He screamed so that all the beasts of the deep could hear. He shouted with the gravitas of passion, of strength, of vigor and boldness. I have a right to live. I have a right to all that is out there. I am noble. I am true. And I will stand against you no matter what it may mean. And the storm settled, and the violent gales ceased. The rain stayed in the clouds, and the beasts of the wild knew from whence that proclamation came. Evil men heard his cry as well, and they all knew that there was something out there, something new, and something dangerous. And the spirit of he who would conquer the world was born. And so man began to stake his claim. He saw women on his travels, beautiful, wild, and free, and one day decided he would protect them and stand with them. He wanted better for his sons, and he wanted his sons to stand with him against the cruelty of chaos. And one day, men of other groups came to him, for they were also in the same predicament of fear and helplessness, and united in a single vision to provide a known world against the chaos, a world where their story mattered. They built a perimeter, and man stood alongside his brethren and their women, and they protected. And sons came, fruitful of his vigor and the power of his soul, and held on to his tradition of man against the chaos. And great deeds of war came about, and structures to honor their vision of a known world were built. Food was collected and made bountiful. Evil men were slain, and hideous beasts were chased away from their settlement. And man and woman stood united against the chaos, and they saw that their deeds were good, and nature respected their will. And thus gods were made in his image, and he paid tribute to them, for they loved him, and he loved them. For he honored the respect given by nature unto him, and he honored his fathers. And thus began the world of men.